Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Students, today we are going to start another ISO standard, ISO 31000. ISO 31000 is another family of standards codified by International Organization for Standardization. ISO 31000 is standard for risk management. This standard provides principles and guidelines for effective risk management. As you know, risk is present in everything we do. For example, while crossing the road, there is a risk of hitting or injury is present. While driving a car, there is a risk of accident. While launching a new product, there is a risk of failure of new product, and many other examples we have in our daily life. Around the world, things are changing very fast. Market is very unstable. Business currency is unpredictable. All organizations are facing with some sort of risk, which may affect their chances of success. In order to handle new challenges, organizations must assess and update their business processes. And at the same time, they need to account for unexpected risk. That's why ISO developed ISO 31000 for risk management. In the world of uncertainty, ISO 31000 is made for any organization seeking clear guidance on risk management. Why do we need to talk about risk? Risk is inherent to our existence. There is always going to be risk in any human activity. Risk is present in everything we do. Even being just an observer of an event, we are in a risk. We analyze and manage risk every day, from crossing the roads, traveling in personal cars, managing big events, preparing food, handling business issues. Each of these is an example of risk management process. Sometimes it's a result of common sense and sometimes these decisions are made unconsciously. Without risk, there is no reward, no progress. Organizations cannot maximize their opportunities and minimize their threats unless they manage their risk effectively. So, organizations have to measure their risk either quantitatively or qualitatively. Quantitatively, we express in numbers or in units. For example, 50% chances of failure, 5% success rate. Whereas qualitative risk measure in relative value such as low, high, or medium. We need to raise awareness that we all have to manage the risk as a part of our daily working lives as well as our personal life. Students, let me ask a question, a very common sense based question. Why do cars or other vehicles have brakes? You notice that every car, every bicycle, every cycle even has a brake. Why these vehicles have brakes? Because they can go faster. Knowing on the fact that they have brake, they can stop easily. So for high return, organization have to take risk. We take risk which is affordable to us. There is a myth in business that more risk leads to more reward. Matlab, more risk, more gains, more profit. But that's not true always. A rational person like you Like me, we want more reward with less risk. Matlab more gain but with low risk. And when it comes to business management, we observe a more rigorous, formalized approach. We have to develop. We have to develop some sort of strategy to manage risk, like ISO 31000. This approach is useful in pretty much any situation for organization of all shapes, of all sizes of organization, in order to manage their risk in their everyday operations. Risk management is important to identify hazards, assess risk, and then implement some sort of measure to control our risk. Risk is always present in our future, which is unknown to us. We take risks in which we can survive. For example, we cross a busy street at zebra crossing. We know we are safe at zebra crossing. We drive vehicles with seat belts. We feel safe while driving with seat belts. We launch a new product after detailed study. We are conscious that our success rate should be higher. So dealing with risk is a part of organization. It's a part of organizational leadership, organizational governance at all levels. So managing risk should be a part of decision making process of organization, and it must be a responsibility of management to follow a guidelines of risk management in decision making process effectively. Risk management involves looking at the elements of risk present in each step of process and try to mitigate, try to reduce, and try to manage that risk. Risk management is not a stand-alone study. It is a part of responsibilities of management and should be integral part of the organizational processes, including strategic planning, including all level or important projects and in also management processes. We do agree that business operations always contain a degree of uncertainty. There are always chances of risk. There are chances that things might go wrong. So we need to develop a program like ISO 31000. This is a unique guidance-based program, guidance-based standard which provides guidance, not requirements. This standard has not been developed with the intention of certification. This standard just provides guidance for internal and external audit programs. It provides an approach for risk management. ये स्टैंडर्ड सर्टिफिकेशन के लिए नहीं बनाया गया. इसका पर्पस जो है रिस्क मैनेजमेंट की बेहतर से बेहतर अप्रोच को समझाना है, बेहतर से बेहतर अप्रोच को अडॉप्ट करना है. देखिए रिस्क मैनेजमेंट करते हुए हमें पॉजिटिव रिस्क भी नजर आएगा और नेगेटिव रिस्क भी नजर आएगा. पॉजिटिव जो रिस्क है उसमें ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के लिए अपॉर्चुनिटी है और जो नेगेटिव रिस्क है उसके लिए ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का थ्रेट मौजूद है. सो इस इफेक्टिव रिस्क मैनेजमेंट में हम इसी पॉजिटिव और नेगेटिव रिस्क को असेस करेंगे और इससे लड़ने के लिए ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को तैयार करेंगे. A standard is just a formalized set of specification that a lot of people have agreed upon. कोई भी स्टैंडर्ड उन रिक्वायरमेंट्स या स्पेसिफिकेशन पे मुश्तमिल है जिसको बहुत सारे लोग मिलके बनाते हैं, एग्री होते हैं। International Organization for Standardization is responsible for setting the standard. This organization is the world's largest developer of international standard. It's based in Geneva, Switzerland. कोई भी स्टैंडर्ड आसानी से नहीं बनता, उसके पीछे बहुत बड़ी मेहनत मौजूद होती है, सालों की मेहनत मौजूद होती है। An ISO standard is developed by a panel of experts. ये पैनल डिफरेंट मुल्कों की बहुत सारी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से बिलोंग करती है। टेक्निकल कमेटी में पूरी दुनिया से बेहतरीन एक्सपर्ट्स को बुलाया जाता है। Once the need for a standard has been established, these experts meet to discuss and negotiate a draft of standard. As soon as a draft has been developed, it is shared with other ISO members who can put their comments, put their vote on it. If a consensus is reached, if the consensus is okay, the draft becomes an ISO standard. If not, then this draft goes back to again technical committee for further work, for further edits. So when we are using an ISO standard, we are benefiting from a lot of people work. We are benefiting from the consensus of thousands member of organization. We can have good practices of different experts. So in the case of ISO 31000, the focus is on the best practices, best principles for implementing, maintaining and improving a framework for risk management. It is important to note that ISO 31000 is a set of guidelines, not requirements. Many ISO standards like ISO 9001, ISO 14001, ISO 45001, they are requirements, which means that they have to follow a strict set of specification, and against that specification company can be certified. But ISO 31000 is not like that. It cannot be certified. It's just a set of best practices, best guidelines of best experts. ISO 31000 is an international standard on risk management. It defines risk in its own way. They say risk is the effect of uncertainty on an organization's ability to meet its objectives. Effects of uncertainty can be positive, can be negative. Risk is associated with future event which has not happened yet. An uncertain future event or condition can affect, can delay, can enhance the organizational objective. Risk arises from uncertainty in organizations' decisions. For example, higher oil prices, political risk, cybercrime, brand reputation, terrorism, government regulations. There are some risks that private and public organizations of all type of sizes around the world they have to face. They have to tackle these risks. Uncertainty arises from the factors. Basically, uncertainty arises from those factors in which organization is working, and some sort of factors are uncontrollable by the organization. They cause a source of risk. They can hinder, they can affect the objectives of organization. It is clear that element of risk is always present in business decisions, and they have to deal with risk at all levels. Very common risk in business, for example, lower profits than anticipated profits, making loss than rather than profit, sales volume drop, economic climate is changing, government regulation policy has been changed. Here is a list of some environmental sources of risk: physical, economic, social, political, legal, operational, financial, or human related sources of risk. Here is the development history of ISO 31000. Very interesting. For the sake of knowledge, please go through it. From where first it was initiated. It was initiated by 30 countries in 1999, and in 2004 they revised their first draft. 2005 ISO start working on their draft, their work, which is already done by 30 countries. And after a great work, after a great labor, ISO published their first draft of ISO 31000 on November 13, 2009. Students, you must remember that this standard is not intended to be used for the purpose of certification. This standard is based on generic guidelines for managing organizational risk. So ISO 31000 aims to simplify risk management into a set of clearly understandable generic guidelines that should be straightforward to implement regardless of the size, regardless of the nature of business, location, or other things. It can be applied throughout the life of organization, and it can cover a lot of activities, a wide range of activities of organization, either strategic decisions, either operational, functional, project, or multiple issues. Goal of ISO can be summarized. The purpose of ISO 31000 is to achieve consistency and reliability in risk management by creating a standard that would be applicable to all forms of risk. This goal is put by ISO, International Organization for Standardization itself. ISO 31000 is based on three elements: principles, framework, and processes. Principles guides the creation of framework, and framework defines the processes, and processes show the base for risk. Principles are like objectives. It describes what need to be achieved, and framework is like the information about how to achieve these objectives. Framework is a path to achieve objectives. Okay, principles are objectives and framework are path to achieve those objectives. Principles describe what qualities of effective risk management in organization should be considered. एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में रिस्क मैनेजमेंट के लिए कौन सी इफेक्टिव क्वालिटीज होनी जरूरी हैं, ठीक है। और फ्रेमवर्क में ऑर्गेनाइजेशन डिस्क्राइब करेगा कि वो अपने सारे प्रोसेसेस को कैसे इंटीग्रेट करेगा, किन स्ट्रैटेजीज को लेके वो अपने प्रोसेसेस को इंटीग्रेट करेगा, उसका अपने ऑब्जेक्टिव्स को अचीव करने के लिए क्या मेथड होगा, फ्रेमवर्क इस चीज को तय करेगा। और प्रोसेसेस ये रिस्क वाले एरियाज पे फोकस करेगा। हर प्रोसेस पे कोई ना कोई रिस्क मौजूद है, हर प्रोसेस में जो रिस्क होगा उसको आइडेंटिफाई करना है, एनालाइज करना है, एवेल्यूएट करना है और उस रिस्क की ट्रीटमेंट के लिए प्रोसेसेस काम करेंगे। यहाँ पे हम पार्ट 1 को क्लोज करते हैं। इस नेक्स्ट पार्ट पे हम ISO 31000 की बाकी इंफॉर्मेशन को शेयर करेंगे। शुक्रिया, अल्लाह हाफिज।